There's been a lot of speculation over whether the U.S. government is ever going to actually buy Bitcoin, whether they're secretly buying Bitcoin or whether they even have plans to buy Bitcoin. Well, in a strange turn of events, the U.S. government added a huge chunk to their gold reserves. We'll break down all of the details about it. And of course, this is causing even more questions about how serious the U.S. is on actually buying 1 million Bitcoin. That's what we've been hearing for a long time. There's a lot of speculation, a lot of talk, rumors saying they're actually going to do this. They're serious about it. And now we see that I guess the first move is trying to get as much gold as possible, which, you know, you're seeing this trend expand from all central banks and governments in the last few years, rather in the last year, because of all of the tension in the world. Obviously, Bitcoin historically gold is historically the store of value from institutions. So the move does make some sort of sense. But of course, this is a Bitcoin show. And guys, we got a special guest with us today. We got Paul Tarantino, CEO of Bytefederal, in the building with us. So Paul, thanks so much for joining us. All right, this is going to be fun. You know, hey chat, you guys know, you guys have been giving Nico some flack, and I'm like, Paul, maybe you'll be less bearish than Nico. He's like, I don't know. So guys, take it easy on him. Take it easy on him, guys. All right. Anyways, let's get into this news story, guys. So here we go. Here is the breaking scoop from Axios, which is, of course, Trump officials broker massive U.S. Venezuela gold deal. Huge news. Actually, my first, maybe more cynical view here is, remember there was supposed to be a Fort Knox gold audit? Is this them replenishing the Fort Knox gold audit that we don't know what's going on? Do we even have gold there? Is this their way of making sure there is some gold in the Fort Knox? We'll see. Who knows? Anyways, breaking this down a little bit. Venezuela's state-owned mining company on Monday inked a multi-million-dollar deal to sell as many as 1,000 kilograms of gold destined for U.S. markets. At least two sources familiar with the matter have told Axios, of course, why it matters. The arrangement shows the tightening commercial bounds between Venezuela and the U.S. after President Trump ousted the Nationals, indicted socialist dictator, and exerted de facto control over its oil-rich petroleum company. But to zoom in, the gold deal requires state-owned company Minervan to furnish 650 to 1,000 kilos of gold door bars to the commodities trader Trafigura, according to one of the sources. Contract calls for 98% final gold content. Trafigura will shepherd the gold to U.S. refineries under a separate arrangement with the U.S. government. And of course, U.S. Interior Secretary Doug Burgum, who arrived in Venezuela Wednesday to discuss oil mineral opportunities, helped shepherd the gold contract. So, as the rumors have been said ever since the Venezuela operation, most people pointed out two very crucial resources here, which is, of course, the gold and the oil. We know what happened with the oil. Now it seems like we know what's going to happen with a lot of their gold. And actually, I was talking with Sophie this morning. Of course, she's Venezuelan. And she's like, wait, what? They did a deal to acquire gold. It was multi-million-dollar. They bought gold from Venezuela. She's like, no, they didn't. They just took the gold. Now, of course, the pro and cons of this, again, as I was saying, from my view, it seems like the U.S. government is just trying to replenish the gold that's supposedly at Fort Knox. I think everyone, at least, with the tinfoil hats like us, think there is no gold in Fort Knox. So they need a lot of gold there. But this is a beneficial move from the Venezuelan perspective. Now they obviously make a deal with the U.S., and now they can get on some U.S. financial rails. So it does make a lot of sense. It makes a lot of sense from a, geopolitical trade angle. But again, from a Bitcoiner's perspective, you're like, bro, you're stacking gold over Bitcoin, like huge L. What are you guys doing? I thought we were going to buy 1 million. Now, I know the chat is going to say, because I actually do believe that the U.S. government has been buying Bitcoin just silently. But there is another interesting wrinkle to this. And if you guys are following what's going on Twitter, then you guys know, just like I know, where'd it go? Here we go. That the Trump-linked American Bitcoin now holds 6,500 Bitcoin. Now, why is this interesting? Of course, it's the Trump family's Bitcoin mining company, but they're stacking Bitcoin. they're, getting higher on the Bitcoin treasury rankings. I do have them here for you guys. Actually, here's the government one. Of course, the United States allegedly, supposedly holds over 300,000 coins. We haven't really got an audit on this. So this is just a trust me, bro, not verify scenario. They haven't told us anything. But allegedly, we still held the 2,000 or 200,000 Bitcoin that we were supposedly holding. And then we took that other 128K from China over the fraud case. But let's look at the public companies holding Bitcoin. And I think this is where you might be getting some signal here, especially if you hear and understand a lot of the things that the Trump administration is saying and potentially doing. And it's moving away from the public, away from the public sector into the private sector. And I think this is where this move is very interesting. So let me look here real quick and we'll see where American Bitcoin is. There's Trump Media at 13. America, here we go. There are now 17th on the Bitcoin treasury list here. So they've been making aggressive moves to acquire a lot of Bitcoin. And so anyways, here's my kind of take here. Again, I do believe that the US government is secretly stacking Bitcoin. It makes perfect sense from a game theory perspective. You announce you want to get into Bitcoin. You don't actually wait until, your official announcement to get Bitcoin. You tell people, hey, we're going to tell you up front, we want some Bitcoin. You stack your bags, and then once you actually get your position is when you announce that we've been stacking Bitcoin. And at least in theory, you would expect that the Bitcoin price goes up afterwards because of the game theory. But the other wrinkle here is, again, what Trump has been saying recently, a move away from the public sector into the private sector, which is why I think it's very interesting that we're seeing American Bitcoin Company, the Trump family Bitcoin mining corporation, stacking Bitcoin. So I think the rumors of the U.S. government, or at least Trump and his family stacking Bitcoin, I think there's a lot of water to this. I think there's a lot of weight to this idea that there is stacking coming from the first family. It could potentially happen from the federal level. We know it's happening from the private level. So I think it's pretty safe to say that if they are that bullish from a private corporation level, that they are actively or maybe trying to get Bitcoin, more Bitcoin on the federal level. Of course, Senator Lummis has been pushing we want 1 million Bitcoin. We'll see if that happens, 1 million Bitcoin over the next 5 years. As of now, with all of the hot water that Trump's getting himself into, I'm very cynical and critical about any more Bitcoin stuff coming out of the Trump administration. I know a lot of people are saying the Clarity Act might happen soon. Actually, I have the odds here. The poly market odds are shooting up, even though we are seeing that there is Reuters articles saying like the Clarity Act is stalled. They're at an impasse. And I covered that yesterday. You guys all know the reasons for that. It's because of the stablecoin yields. Actually, there was an interesting tidbit. Remember yesterday, guys? So Paul, I did a coverage of the ECB. And they dropped a report about stable coins and how stable coins are going to take away from the ECB's deposits. Yeah. And then this morning, or rather it was last night, Reuters dropped an article about the Clarity Act and how there's an impasse between the banks and the crypto industry. And guess what, guys? The banks now are saying the same thing. If there is stablecoin proliferation, then our deposits are going to go down. So the same narratives, as I was telling you yesterday, are being played out on both fronts, from the central bank level and from the regional banks in the U.S. As I was saying yesterday, it's like, yeah, that's kind of the point.
Yeah,
like,
exactly.
That is kind of the point. That's what we want to happen. Anyways.
It's what seems like, for me, all these things come together. The gold side and the stablecoin side, the Clarity Act, etc. I take it back to when JP Morgan released some research that showed that like 80% of every dollar that leaves the banking system and goes into crypto never comes back. So it is absolutely a threat to the traditional banking system. So I think this is why the focus on gold now. I think it's an order of operations. So if we can get a large inventory of gold reserves, and then the gold price is driven up through global conflict, through the rest of the world accumulating reserves, then that gold is repriced, which allows massive trillion plus multi-trillion-dollar funding of the Treasury General account.
Okay.
Right. If that then can coincide with the issuance of stablecoin proliferation across the globe, it's going to make those dollars more valuable to people to know that the United States is not on the verge of a debt explosion.
Got
so
it.
I think this is all coming together. I think this is part of the order of operations. And the reason why they want this Clarity Act done ASAP, because they want to get to a point where when they do revalue the gold and we do fix the Treasury General account gets all this liquidity, it can start to do things with the
budget neutral ways.
But in budget neutral ways, right? It can push out stable coins to friends of the West, right? I don't think it's not going to be global printing for everybody in the future. It's going to be delivery of stable coins to partners and friends of the West.
Yeah, and we're seeing that happen in Argentina, like currently. Interesting. Yeah, I think that's a very, for lack of better terms, like sober, analysis of what's going on. Because I know our chat, they've been wondering one thing, this whole thing, like, why is gold running up and Bitcoin's been flat? Like, is the US government actually serious about the Clarity Act passing, this whole Bitcoin stuff? And I've been kind of on the same page as you, that it is an order of operations thing. Most people are not comfortable with Bitcoin like we are. They're not extremists like us guys. They don't look at Bitcoin as this neutral, scarce, parallel economy. They're just looking at it like, hey, I just want an investment. I just want price exposure to it. And this is why you'd expect in the last year that gold would run up, because we're seeing central banks drop treasuries or, fiat debt at the fastest rate ever. We're finally seeing central banks acquire more gold than treasuries. And you're kind of wondering, like, are we in this pseudo gold standard right now because of all of the uncertainty in the world? It is making you wonder, like, what exactly is going on? And I've just been saying, it's like, look, guys, it just makes perfect sense. More people are comfortable with gold than they are with Bitcoin, hence why that's the first thing that they get into.
And I do think there's a lot of truth in the fact that the central banks of the world want privacy, right? They don't want you to have private transactions, but they need them. They want them. Gold settled financial transactions, they're going to be able to control that. They're going to have more privacy. They're going to be able to do the business they want to do. Once that reset has been completed and the world is settling trade on gold, then I think the green shoots of the future, if you reference the fourth turning, is Bitcoin as the settlement layer.
Got it.
This is, I don't think we are off the trail or we've lost the map of where Bitcoin is going, but I do think this order of operations is part of the process so that we are on good standing with trade globally. Our balance sheet is fixed, then we move to Bitcoin.
Can they actually fix the balance sheet though, Paul?
It's like a lot higher gold price. So
a lot higher.
If you follow this order of operations, it's going to be well above $10,000.
Yeah, and that is the crazy thing. A lot of gold analysts are like, look, it's going, I forget who it was, a very big name. He's like, it's going to 10, 20K in like a year or so. And you're like, that is just insane, especially when everyone's kind of been saying the, law of big numbers. It's a bigger market cap. It can't run that high. And they've been using that in Bitcoin. And for us, we're like, look at what happened to gold, guys. Like, I don't know if we're all looking at the same thing, because if it could happen to gold, if there's a rush into Bitcoin, things could get very crazy right now. Yep. But I do think your point, and I've been saying the same thing on the show. It's like, it's an order of operations thing. They're going to go into gold first. And then eventually, I really like your take here that first it starts with gold and then it goes into Bitcoin. And they gotta kind of get the first foundation down and make sure that they can get more gold. They can revalue the gold. And then what can they do after they have a lot of gold? Well, allegedly, because, who knows what's going on with the Fort Knox.
A budget neutral way to buy Bitcoin is to revalue gold.
True. I mean, Senator Lummis has been saying that, but, we'll see how much, influence Senator Lummis actually has in Congress, especially now that we know she's not going to be running in 2027. But Paul, I do want to ask you one more thing. You are at Bytefederal. So you know, you have to deal with a little more regulations than we do. We just talk on YouTube. So I think you have a better insight than I do on what actually comes from the government level and Bitcoin. So what's your thoughts right now on the Clarity Act? What's in it and whether it's actually going to pass?
Boy, I do think it's going to pass. I think they'll sort it out. I think they'll figure out a way that at least, you know, crypto exchanges are either going to be able to pay a yield or offer rewards or some sort of incentive for people to park stable coins at the exchanges. I think that'll get settled. The time frame of that, you know, I've seen enough of politics. You know, that's I'm not going to predict that. On the regulatory front, you know, not just we obviously we see it in our industry, and I think what we're seeing around all of us is there is certainly an attack to suppress self-custody, and we need to, as hardcore Bitcoiners, we need to fight to maintain that at all costs. That is the core feature of Bitcoin that gives us the power that we have. We would not be here today if it wasn't for self-custody. Self-custody has bailed us out of every crisis that we've had, every attack that we've experienced. And don't kid yourselves, just because the government is saying, we like Bitcoin, we want to bank Bitcoin, we want to loan against, that doesn't mean that they want you to have self-custody and to be sovereign. They want this thing moved into the banking system and controlled by the banking system. And the way they do that is they incentivize you to give up self-custody, or they regulate you out of self-custody. So that is the preeminent battle that I think we're going to be fighting for as long as Bitcoin is here. And we need to make sure that we keep that ground. That's the beachhead that we cannot lose.
I 100% agree with you, Paul. I've been saying for a while, obviously there's a lot of infighting currently in regards to the core NOTs debate. You know, that's been one of the big blow-ups in Bitcoin in the last year or so. And I followed along on it. I personally don't think it's as catastrophic as everyone else says. I'm like, if spam's going to kill Bitcoin, then this isn't what we thought it was. That's kind of like my default here. And I've been talking on the show constantly, and I literally laid it out exactly like you did. I was just calling it like the real attack going on right now is the Wall Street attack on Bitcoin, trying to centralize a lot of Bitcoin in their custody, making sure via their products that you give up the keys to your Bitcoin so that they can hold their Bitcoin or hold your Bitcoin. And I'm like, that's the attack, guys. It's really under the radar because it is so bullish that the institutions are coming. We've been in Bitcoin for a long time. We've heard the rumors. Institutions are coming. We all thought they were going to pump our bags. Here we are. We're like, you guys are dunking on us. Like, what's going on here? And I'm just like, it's like the Matrix. You know, you see the green lines. I'm like, guys, they're just trying to get you to give up your keys.
Yeah.
And they're dropping products right now that are incentivizing people to give up their keys. And they're going to continue to do that. And this is the war that we're probably going to be doing for the next decade plus, is fighting that urge to give up the keys of your Bitcoin so that you can get whatever shiny product Wall Street's trying to give you. I've been saying that same thing on this show for a while. And the more I see coming out of the Clarity Act kind of debate, I'm like, it makes perfect sense to me. That's why I'm like, I don't like to agree with Brian Armstrong much, but I do agree with I'd rather have no bill than a really bad bill.
Right.
And the way it's going, I'm like, man, this is going to be a monstrosity.
Yeah. You know, we used to, when Trace Mayer was just pounding the tables, I forget what he called it, but every January, you know, January 1, we'd all pull our Bitcoin.
Proof of reserves.
We'd all pull our Bitcoin from every exchange into self-custody. And that was a really great training wheel for all of us that were here during that time, because it got us in a habit of sweeping our coins to self-custody. And what it does is it flushes out anybody that's up to no good, right?
Yeah.
You know, if you're FTX or you're Celsius or you're XYZ qualified custodian,
or Quadriga,
right, or whoever, like if we pull all our coins, we know who's rehypothecating and who's up to no good. And I think it's a practice that Bitcoiners need to get back to. It is the beachhead that is going to keep us strong and keep the shenanigans out of Bitcoin. We all know about Jane Street. We all know about all of the price manipulation that goes on in the derivatives markets. Those derivative markets are only going to get bigger. Yeah. And self-custody in those instances it's just going to become more and more valuable. So I can't state enough how important that is. And when it comes to core and knots, I'm probably just going to piss off everybody here.
Let's go.
I think they're both attacks.
Oh, spicy.
Right. And so this is the way I look at it. Number one, knots, even though morally taking this imperative, which, you know, morally, I will align with it. From a protocol level, it's introducing censorship. And
agreed.
If we're going to introduce censorship, that's a slippery slope.
Yep.
I don't think we should go there. On the core side, the way they handled the marketing and promotion of this, the way they said, like, basically our opinion is the only opinion that matters, and the fact that Peter Thiel is an investor in Citria, who's the only one benefiting from the expansion of that. You put that guy,
fishy. That
guy's name in front of anything, and I'll be suspicious.
Me too. Right? Me too.
So I think they both have potentials to be attacks. They both need to be constantly looked at, reviewed, and questioned. This is the nature of the space we're in, and opting out,
yep.
by self-custody is the way we do that.
100%. Couldn't agree more. Okay, one last question, since we're kind of on this topic of self-custody. Of course, Bytefederal, you guys sell Bitcoin to, you know, individuals. That's what you guys do through ATMs, etc. And we were talking about, like, kind of the Wall Street attack, obviously from a incentivizing you to give up your keys. But we did see kind of a worrying trend last year where, because the ETFs were launched, self-custody is probably at the lowest it's been in a long time. So I'm wondering, again, from your, like, behind the scenes view of working with selling Bitcoin to individuals, are you guys seeing something similar, that people are just going to, you know, ETFs or whatever Wall Street product and avoiding self-custody and the responsibility that comes with it?
We don't see that in the ATMs.
Okay.
And the reason being is that, like, the ATM industry lives on self-custody.
Yeah, 100. That's why I'm asking.
So it was built to replace the peer-to-peer transaction where you met some stranger at a coffee shop, right? So now you're doing a business with a trusted entity, but we buy Bitcoin into our inventory. We're holding the Bitcoin. You're giving us the address you want the Bitcoin sent to, and we're sending it to you. And we're going through every hurdle possible to verify with you that this is your wallet, that you're not sending it to a third party, that this is actually for your own investment purposes. And so it's a peer-to-peer transaction at the end of the day, and we're supporting self-custody. So our customers know that. They come because they want to give you cash that's not in the banking system to get Bitcoin safely and securely into self-custody. So we haven't seen a drop off in our revenues because of the ETF.
Okay, so your customers, your clients, your partners, however you want to you know, describe them, they're just hardcore Bitcoiners. They know exactly what they're getting themselves into.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, they're buying for the long term.
Got it. Okay. Well, I guess that makes me feel a little better. There's still some of us hardcore revolutionaries out there. Me and Nico, we've been on the show, and we have been accused of cheerleading for the institutions because it's a news show and that's what the news is happening. And hey, we were all, I guess, somewhat duped last year on, hey, they're going to pump our bags, and they haven't. But we come on the show every single day and we're just like, guys, DCA into self-custody, all our partners help you do that. That's what we're really about. We are hardcore Bitcoiners in that sense. Well, it's like, it's self-custody or bust.
I guess I'm just going to promote Trace Mayer this entire show, but you know, Trace Mayer's
he had a good run. He's OG. I grew up watching Trace Mayer. There was a little, you know, there was a little skirmish there.
A little bit there, but all in all, I mean, top of the game. But he talked about the financialization as one of his network effects, and is where we are today. So if you think there, you know, we talk about this at Bytefederal, there's a core group of, whether you're libertarian or sovereign minded, whatever you are, that you came to Bitcoin fairly early, and you came to Bitcoin for all of its sovereign self-custody principles. Now that is only going to go so far, right? We are, as you said earlier, we're a small percentage of the global population. Yeah. We are now in this wave of adoption of people that just want exposure, right?
Yeah.
Well, as they get exposure and as banks are transitioning from a rehypothecation fiat system to trying to blend in Bitcoin full reserved into their banking system, we're going to see some banks have some problems with that.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
I mean, like, this is exactly why the Fed told Simon, or the Fed told Caitlin Long, and why the bank, the Bank of England told Simon Dixon, like, you a full reserve bank, and they but just about shit themselves, right? Like, there's no way you're going to be allowed to do this. So we're stuffing these two things together. I wouldn't be surprised if we see some banks do some really squirrely things and get themselves in trouble with this new bearer asset that they don't quite understand. So I guess the point being is that these people might be going for exposure now, but when their exposure to institutions gets them in trouble, or a transaction is censored, or they try to withdraw and it comes with ramifications, they too will be taught the value of self-custody.
Yeah.
So this is not immune to just small crypto exchanges, right? When you put a bearer asset on a balance sheet of a big bank, things can go wonky. So I would just say self-custody is not out of style. It's just there's a whole new group of people adopting Bitcoin, getting exposure to Bitcoin, that don't understand the value of it yet.
Yeah, 100%. Paul, for the chat saying some funny things. Nico looks different today, and then another one was like, "Yo, is Opti's dad on the show today?" But no, I one last question since we're on this topic, and I do kind of want to connect this back to the opening story. Like you said, and I've been very adamant about saying this on the show, that I think all of us Bitcoiners knew that at a certain point, Bitcoin would become financialized. If Bitcoin is going to be what we think it's going to be, it's inevitable. It's going to be financialized. I know a lot of the hardcore cypherpunk, there is a faction of Bitcoiners that like, I want Bitcoin to win, but not like this. It's like, it's another Matrix meme here. But since you're not here often, I got you in the studio. As Bitcoin becomes financialized, do you think like having the Trump family or any politician embracing Bitcoin, is this doing harm to our industry? Or again, is this just the inevitable kind of evolution of what Bitcoin is and what it will do?
Okay. Both are correct.
Right.
Right. So anybody, right, who has Trump derangement syndrome and is upset about Trump is going to therefore hate.
Yeah, and we're seeing that narrative start to grow a lot.
So that is going to be what it is, because that's politics. But I know there's a lot of Democrats out there that embrace Bitcoin. We've talked to them. Awesome. We've talked to legislators. We've talked to senators. There's a lot of people out there that are not on Team Red that love Bitcoin, and we should embrace all of them through their educational process. And I think that's the biggest thing I notice when we're talking to legislators, regulators, et cetera, is just the lack of knowledge of how the Bitcoin blockchain truly works, how it truly functions. And it takes adoption, right? When you first bought Bitcoin,
I didn't know anything.
I didn't know. It's when you're faced with, holy shit, my bag is down 80%.
It's when you gotta learn.
I better open a book.
I better read.
Right. I better read what the hell's going on. So it's going to take time for them to educate themselves. And quite frankly, they have less time than a lot of people to do it. I just was up in Tallahassee last week talking to legislators there. And these poor guys are running from meeting to meeting to meeting to meeting to meeting. They don't have hardly any time to really dig in and study. So they are learning as we explain it to them. And quite frankly, there's a lot of people going in there and explaining stuff to them that is very, very tilted towards crypto.
I've noticed that too.
Right. And so they're learning things that don't necessarily apply to a fully decentralized protocol like Bitcoin. And then they're assuming Bitcoin functions in the same manner.
Oh man.
Right. So there's still a lot of education to be done. And that's the biggest thing that we can do still today. And it'll be ongoing.
Well, Paul, you just made me feel better about me having a job for the long term. So, hey, well, we'll be here for a little bit.
You'll be here for a long time.
Actually, one last thing before I keep it moving, because obviously one of our OG kind of mottos here at the show was Simply Bitcoin will be the guide through the separation of money and state. Now, obviously, with politicians, with Wall Street embracing Bitcoin, there has been maybe doubt, or in people's minds, this idea that, like, are we actually separating money and state, or are we being co-opted because they're coming in, because the U.S. government is trying to buy Bitcoin? I've always kind of viewed it's like, look, Bitcoin is for enemies. Bitcoin is for anyone. This, again, was how we knew it was going to happen. But we are in this transition period where it's like, it feels a little weird. You know, when Larry Fink comes out with the ETF, it was like, I'm covering the news, but I'm also like, I don't know. I don't really feel that good about it. Right. With politicians coming out, I'm like, you know, maybe you'll pump my bags, but this really doesn't feel good to me anymore. But hey, we're here to cover the news. So what's your thoughts on this idea?
So the first thing that comes to mind is, yeah, we are on a mission to separate money from state, but you have never lost the option to separate yourself from the state's money.
Bars.
So that is really where it starts, right? And we're seeing it in Lugano. We're seeing it in Prague. We're seeing it in El Salvador. We're seeing it in Bitcoin jungle, and right. So all these little grassroots communities that are growing up around a Bitcoin centered economy, and they're doing trade with each other. All of the continent of Africa is moving in that direction right now. They don't care about the volatility because their fiat is garbage, and they're making a decision.
The fiat's more volatile.
Right. So the United States is actually well behind the curve, just like we were way behind the curve on wireless internet and fiber optics, right? Like, remember when all that was happening and China just jumped to the future and they just went wireless everything? And we were a good 10 years behind that.
Yeah.
Africa has a horrible banking system, horrible financial infrastructure. They're jumping to Bitcoin. They're jumping into the future. Because we have a functioning system, because we have bank infrastructure, ACH, wires, etc., Venmo, PayPal, like, we have so many financial products that we are looking to the globe like the last movers. So when it's much easier to jump into the future when you're not carrying a bunch of baggage, right? And so we have got to shed the baggage, and the way we do that is one by one, individually banking ourselves. That's why that's our motto at Bytefederal: go bank yourself, because that's where it all starts. Removing yourself from state money first, and then the state will have to follow.
I love it. Okay. Absolutely love it, Paul. Great takes there. Spicy, a little spicy take, but great take. Love to see it. All right, guys. We got a jam-packed show. So, of course, I got Paul in the studio with me from Bytefederal. And in the culture, we're going to be talking about a new narrative attack on, you know, Bitcoin ATMs. There's a whole kind of new attack angle towards Bitcoin ATMs. So that'll be the tail end of the show. And then, guys, look, you guys know me. I did the bit about the 1 minute chart. I got this video from Stan Druckenmiller, billionaire investor Stan Druckenmiller, guys, and he's dunking on me here, guys. So he's dunking on the 1 minute chart. We're gonna talk about that. It's actually not about the 1 minute chart, full disclosure. But anyways, and then in the news, remember the story about the US Marshals losing $46 million in crypto that they were supposed to be custodying? Well, we got another update on that, guys. It's kind of a good update, kind of I think it's a net positive on that. So that's today's show. Quick commercial break, and we'll be right back.
Today's episode is brought to you by Bitcoin Well Infinite. If you're a serious Bitcoin buyer, you've probably hit the same wall. Most platforms make you give up custody just to play by the rules. Bitcoin Well Infinite fixes that. They're North America's only publicly traded, non-custodial OTC desk listed on the TSX Venture Exchange, which means transparent operations and zero counterparty risk.
You buy Bitcoin, you take immediate control, period. For trades over $50,000, you get a dedicated executive Bitcoin advisor, competitive spread starting at 1%, and immediate delivery straight to your own wallet. No custody risk, no withdrawal fees, just institutional grade execution with full asset control. If you want to buy Bitcoin the right way, book a free consultation at bitcoinwell.com/OTC or email infinite@bitcoinwell.com.
I want to give a shout out to our partner, Stampseed. Is your Bitcoin in cold storage really secure? Are your seed phrases really secure? Stampseed's do-it-yourself kit has everything you'll need for you to hammer your seed words into commercial-grade titanium plates instead of just writing them down on paper. Paper is fragile. Titanium plates are strong. Your words are actually stamped into the titanium plate with this hammer and these letter stamping tools. Once the words are in, they aren't going anywhere. No risk of the plate breaking apart and pieces falling everywhere. Titanium stamp seeds will survive nearly triple the heat produced by a house fire. They are also crush-proof, waterproof, non-corrosive, and time-proof. And now you can customize your titanium seed plates. You can upload your design or logo and they will laser engrave it on the back of your seed plate, the opposite side of where the words are. Stamp your seed on Stampseed and use promo code SIMPLY to get 15% off anything on the stampseed.com store.
And the chat, you guys are killing me today. You guys are killing me today. All right, guys. Anyways, the current Bitcoin price is currently 70,810. So there's been a little bit of a correction this morning. But if you're watching all markets are kind of melting. I don't want to say melting down, but all markets are down right now, which from a geopolitical kind of macro framework, I think what might be happening is all the markets, I think, again, this is just my opinion here, are pricing in a longer war than what the Trump administration is saying. So I think that's what we're seeing currently happen in all the markets. We'll obviously be covering this as we progress along, and we'll see how long this whole prolonged Operation Epic Fury will happen or will be. I think that might be what's happening right now. Anyways, the decline, or rather the discount from all-time high, is currently at a 43.9% discount. The market cap is 1.42 trillion, and the block height is 939,463. All right, guys. So I am going to do a little different numbers today. It's not necessarily about Bitcoin. As I was trolling earlier in the beginning before I hit the break, you guys know one of the bits that I've been doing is, and Paul, maybe you're unfamiliar with, the chat loves when I bring up the 1 minute chart. They've been calling me a chart boy. I don't really do, I draw lines on my charts here, but I really just watch the 1 minute chart for like the emotional, dopamine that I get. It's like, oh, you see the price pump, you're like, oh, I feel good. You see it dump and your stomach drops to the bottom and you're like, man, this is brutal. So I do the 1 minute chart on the show. And the chat loves when I do some TA stuff. I've been wrong, and that's the point of this clip. So I saw this short clip of Stan Druckenmiller. And of course, billionaire investor, he's been in the game for probably longer than I've been alive, being a trader, being in the markets. And he had an interesting take on TA. And the reason I'm going to bring this up is because we are seeing, of course, currently a lot of TA around Bitcoin, whether we bought them. I actually have a CoinDesk article saying like, oh, we're at a crucial TA, line right now, a crucial trading TA support resistance area. But before I get into that, I do want to play the Stan Druckenmiller clip because I think it is an interesting perspective. And I think a lot of us that do kind of look at lines on the chart, we all love a little bit of TA, as the joke is, TA is astrology for men. So hey, look, we're all guilty. We all love a little bit of TA. But let's just listen to Stan Druckenmiller's take on this. And I think it's an interesting view, and probably why you're starting to see that the TA from the Bitcoin perspective, and I guess even in broader markets, it's not as fail-safe as you might believe it is. So here's a short clip.
Okay, I can unequivocally tell you that technical analysis is about 20% as effective today as it was then because no one was using it. But when everybody's using it, it doesn't work anymore because you don't have a unique thing to act against. So it's kind of sad because it's easy and you can be lazy. You don't have to work that hard. Just look at a chart instead of going into a 10Q and all this other stuff. But technical analysis is a problem.
You heard it there, guys. The 1 minute chart is wrecked, dude. Stan Druckenmiller just told us the 1 minute chart is wrecked. But anyways, on that note, obviously, we're all looking at the price. We're all wondering, hey, did Bitcoin bottom? You know, are we hitting certain levels? Are we hitting resistance? Do we have support? And I think that is why some of the more price analysis that I do on this show has been kind of wrong, is because everyone is using it. And further, the market makers currently, they see the order books and they know what we're doing on the timeline. Hence why everyone always jokes like, don't get excited if the price is pumping. Don't say it, you know, counter trade the algorithms. But anyways, on that note, obviously, we're all looking at the current price right now of Bitcoin. Here's the CoinDesk article, Bitcoin traders alert. The rally is nearing a 2-year make or break price zone, which is roughly that 73 to 74 range that we're all kind of seeing. Here's a good little chart. But I brought this up with the idea of, hey, TA probably doesn't work, guys. I think we could all kind of agree it doesn't work. And again, as I was saying on Monday, one of the more interesting things that's happened this week, in my opinion, and we talked about it before we went live, is the idea that Bitcoin has, you know, pumped in the face of a war in the Middle East. And a lot of us were expecting, you actually told me a funny story, a lot of us were expecting the markets to dump. And now we're all like, wait, like, I guess the TA, the lines don't, it means nothing. And then to add on that, which we say here all the time, and we just talked about it a minute ago, is like when the price dumps, that's when you really got to learn and understand what this Bitcoin thing is. And just to tack that on to this, I think what we might be seeing is there are people that understand what this is. And hence, when you would expect Bitcoin to dump, that's why we probably saw a pump. Is just like, the lines on the chart don't mean anything right now when people are trying to escape the system because of uncertainty in the markets, because of global war, because maybe their financial system is collapsing. So I say all that to just drop a kernel of hopium for the chat, in the sense that, look, the lines mean nothing. All it takes is, you know, a very convicted buyer here to buy Bitcoin, and the whole game changes. And I think we're seeing that play out in real time. So anyways, enough voodoo on TA. But Paul, Stan Druckenmiller, do you agree with him on TA just not working anymore?
Well, I partially I do, because I do believe that the more and more traders are following certain indicators, the less valuable those indicators become. But I do think TA is a really good tool for position sizing and also scaling your trade in regards to whether you're a day trader, a swing trader, a long-term investor. But I think the technical value of on-chain analysis is still providing a tremendous amount of value. It's very underused.
Yeah.
So I think there's a lot of technical benefits there. And I guess the only other thing I would say is I think the most important factor is the emotion around Bitcoin.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
So when things are super, super negative, it's generally a good time to be adding.
Yes.
And we see that time and time again. My favorite indicator is the fear and greed index.
Yeah.
Right.
When the best TA in the game.
When that thing breaks double digits and is in single digit fear zone, I was like, well, I should probably be buying right now.
And it hurts. You're like, man,
yeah,
I feel like ass. I'm poor. And the fear and greed, it's like at 9, you're like, yeah, I should probably be buying right now.
Right. Yeah.
Well, we have one, we got a what country club hillbilly. He goes, the 4-year cycle is technical analysis. Dude, a man of my own heart, man of my own heart here, because me and Nico have been arguing over the 4-year cycle. And actually, not to put you on the spot, Paul, but Paul is a little bit aligned with Nico. Maybe let's talk about that, because I was asking the chat. I'm like, is this a suckers rally, or are we decoupling? Are we finally breaking out? The chat agreed suckers rally, and we were talking this morning. You're like, dude, we might have a suckers rally up into 80, and then we dump. And I'm like, no, please.
It's a suckers rally until something, or up and until something is triggered that really dramatically increases liquidity in the United States. Right. So, and there's so many things on the horizon that could trigger that. So
yeah, truly,
it is a very dangerous trade to try and short Bitcoin no matter what. You don't, because you could wake up tomorrow, something happens overnight, a bank goes out, global liquidity comes rushing in, you
a
wake
huge
up,
liquidation, and you get wrecked.
Up, yeah, 10K overnight, and
the chat's gonna lose it, Paul. The chat's gonna lose it.
So you know, again, like, unless you're a professional trader, and that you're, you know, first of all, don't trade your whole stack, right? If you have to trade because you feel like you can,
because you're a degenerate gambler,
or you feel like you can do better than the market, then go ahead and do it with part of your stack, right? But don't risk your long-term holdings, because it is very dangerous to short Bitcoin. And I just highly recommend you just take advantage of dips and acquire.
Yeah, totally. I mean, one of the kind of the main ideas on the show for us is like, look, guys, if you're a professional trader, you're probably not watching Simply Bitcoin. You're watching the charts, you know? Yeah, so like, if you're here, you're probably like us. You just want to stack Bitcoin. You want to be entertained. You want to, you know, be updated on the news. Like I think I can make a pretty good bet that there's no one like on Wall Street in a trading desk, like watching Simply Bitcoin and then making trades off of that. Though the chat does yell at me about that sometimes. But I say all that to say, like, it's very hard right now, especially as we've all been watching in Bitcoin since Wall Street and the institutions got in. Like, they're playing Wall Street games with the price, whether it was Jane Street, like we all kind of suspected, or what have you. They're sophisticated traders, and they're coming into Bitcoin, and the safest bet is just like stack Bitcoin, take it into self-custody, because I really don't think, like, I'll talk for myself. Like, I know I have no edge on a, you know, algorithmic Wall Street trader that's been doing this for 30 years and just found a new asset, a new industry, a new market to get into. And I'm just like, you know, I tried to do some trading in my early days. I can't do it. I can't look at charts.
But you can use long-term technical analysis to say this is a high probability point to start adding. You can do smart dollar cost averaging, is what I'm saying.
No, so, I totally agree.
Right. So
I totally agree.
Just zoom out, start at the monthly chart, weekly chart, daily chart. If you
go to the 1 minute chart,
if you're going shorter term than that, then you know,
dude,
that's going to be tough.
Chat, look, my dad's on the show telling me that we shouldn't be trading the 1 minute chart, bro. I guess that bit's dead now, Paul. Yep. Actually, it's not. I love the feeling of watching the 1 minute chart. It makes me feel alive right now, since nothing's been happening in Bitcoin.
It looks like there's a lot more going on.
Yeah, the 1 minute chart is so fun. And really, it's like you said, and then we'll move on. It's like you said, when it feels bad, that's when you probably should be buying. And again, I've told everyone in the chat to do this experiment with themselves, is like, turn on the 1 minute chart, don't trade, but just kind of analyze and observe yourself when you're watching the 1 minute chart, and you see the price dump, and it's literally like a 10% move, and you're like, oh my God, the house is burning. This is the psychology of trading, and you can just like see it in yourself. And this is why I tell everyone, like, dude, just don't trade. Just buy Bitcoin weekly, daily, whatever, monthly, whatever works for you. Just buy it, hold it, because if you sit there and you do this on the 1 minute chart, you're like, wow, I can easily influence myself to make really dumb decisions. So I'm just going to buy it for the long term.
That's why I don't trade, because I've just lost too much money trading. That's just the bottom line.
Yeah, I'm not a trader.
That's the bottom line.
I'm not a trader.
Some people are made out to do it, and others aren't.
Yeah, you know, I like to think I have balls of steel. You know, like, I'm very stoic. I like to think I'm stoic. And then I look at charts, 1 minute charts, and I'm just like, it pumps a little bit. I'm like, we're back. Let's go. Like, F you. I'm the genius. I remember when Bitcoin hit its last all-time high, I went home. A short story. They've heard it before, but I remember I went home and Bitcoin was at all-time high. And it was around the holidays. So I'm seeing like all my friends. They all know I'm in Bitcoin. And Bitcoin's like pumping. And I was telling him, like, you're an idiot. I told you should have been buying Bitcoin. It's going to go higher. Literally, it was the absolute top, like the next 2 days or something, the next day or so. It was like dumping. I'm like, yeah, I probably shouldn't be ranting about price and Bitcoin gains after a couple of drinks. I'm like, okay, never going to do that again. All right. You know, luckily, none of them listened to me, so I didn't have to get the text messages. But, you know, I've learned my lesson. Anyways, guys. Okay, so update from the US Marshals, basically fumbling their custody of Bitcoin that has been confiscated. We did get a recent update this morning. Let's cover that right now. You know, at least they're doing their job, I guess. That's the net positive here. That's what I'll say before we get into it. Quick commercial break, and I'll be right back.
I want to give a shout out to our partner, Ledin, the leader in Bitcoin-backed loans. Unlock the liquidity in your Bitcoin without having to sell your Bitcoin. They've issued $9 billion in loans to over 10,000 customers since 2018. I absolutely love these guys. Not only do I have an account with them, but I also have a loan. And what I love about them is that there are no monthly payments, and you could pay back the loan at any time. As soon as you send your Bitcoin as collateral, you'll have cash in your account within 24 hours. Over 1,000 five-star customer reviews, and they've never lost a single dollar or sat of customer money. Go to learn.ledin.io/simply today, and you'll get 0.25% off your first loan. I want to give a shout out to our partner, sat123.com. Sovereignty isn't just about your money, it's about your communications too. When the grid goes down, most people go dark. Cell towers fail in hurricanes, cyber attacks, and blackouts. But satellite phones, they don't rely on local infrastructure. Iridium has 77 satellites in orbit, giving you a direct line anywhere in the US, even offshore. If you hold your own Bitcoin keys, you should hold your own comms too. Sat123.com also has everything you need to start building your Bitcoin citadel. Starlink, battery backups, Faraday bags to protect your hardware wallets, and much, much more. It's a one-stop shop for anyone serious about resilience and off-grid independence. Stay connected, stay independent, stay sovereign. Go to sat123.com/simply today and use promo code SIMPLY to get 15% off anything on the store. I want to give a shout out to our partner, BitKey. If you already self-custody your Bitcoin, you know the deal with hardware wallets by now. Complex setups, clumsy interfaces, and a seed phrase that can be lost, stolen, or forgotten. BitKey fixes that. BitKey is a multi-sig hardware wallet built by the team behind Square and Cash App. It packs a cryptographic recovery system and built-in inheritance feature into an intuitive, easy-to-use wallet with no seed phrase to sweat over. It's simple, secure, self-custody without the stress. Time named BitKey one of the best inventions of 2024. Get 20% off at bitkey.world. That's BITKEY.world with the code SIMPLY.
Yeah, you guys are so funny. Hold on, I want to read this comment. I just read it to Paul. This one's funny. You know, last bit I'm telling you guys, dude, just stack Bitcoin. You know, there's no traders watching Simply Bitcoin on Wall Street. And our bro over here, Bitcoin Capital, bro, I'm watching Simply while I'm watching the price action. God, you guys are hilarious. You guys are absolutely hilarious. Okay, guys, so little context. I believe this was like 2-3 weeks ago. Again, you know, Bitcoin time, it's all a blur. But we heard a news story a little while ago, about a week and a half ago, no, actually, maybe it's closer to a month ago, that the US Marshals, which is, you know, in control of confiscated Bitcoin, they're you know, custodying this Bitcoin. They actually outsourced this to an independent contractor to custody the Bitcoin. And then there was a story about a kid, he was flexing. I don't know if you saw, did you see some of these videos of, oh man, dude, they were horrible. It was this young kid. Oh, sorry. It was this young kid, and he was doing like the standard, you know, fiat flex with the money, the watches, the cars. And he's basically like, you broke bums. Like, I'm rich. Look at me. I'm super rich. It turns out that his dad was the contractor that was, you know, used for the US Marshals to custody the Bitcoin. And this kid stole like $46 million of crypto. It was mainly shit coins from his dad's company. And everyone's like, wait, so the government is so incompetent that they can't even custody Bitcoin. And this guy's kid is literally stealing, you know, America's crypto from his dad's company. It was like a huge, huge debacle. We're all laughing in the idea of like, look, if they said they're going to do a Bitcoin strategic reserve, and we're seeing this type of incompetence, like, how much hope do we have that they can actually, or rather, how much hope do we have that they actually have that 200,000, 300,000 coins? It brought a lot of questions. Okay, so that's the context before I get into the recent update we just saw. And I know some of the Bitcoiners you're going to feel a certain way, but breaking this morning, FBI Director Kash Patel announces they arrested this kid. They're saying a government contractor. It was really government contractor's son who stole more than $46 million in crypto from the US Marshals. And you can see here, you know, his bag of cash and his treasures and his ledgers and, you know, I guess his passport and all this stuff. So, hey, at least some justice is served here. But I do want to read the New York Post a little bit. And you know, you guys know me. I'm not the most favorable of the New York Post, but here's the breakdown. The U.S. government contractor busted on ritzy Caribbean island for stealing $46 million in crypto from U.S. Marshal Services, FBI says. Again, this was this morning. So just to read a little bit, a purported U.S. government contractor accused of stealing more than $46 million in crypto, of course, has been arrested in the island of St. Martin. Again, it wasn't really the U.S. contractor of the U.S. Marshal. It was his son, but this is where we'll break it down. So John DeGita's since-deleted LinkedIn page identified him as working for Virginia-based Command Service and Support, CMDSS, which was the company contracted by the U.S. Marshals to custody the Bitcoin, a technology firm led by his dad, or I guess actually he might have worked under his dad, Dean DeGita, which held contracts with the Marshal Service, of course, for managing seized digital assets. Again, we talked about these budget neutral ways of the U.S. government acquiring Bitcoin. And then there's just a huge debacle about they can't even custody the Bitcoin correctly. How can we expect that they actually have all the Bitcoin that they had, especially when we're hearing rumors from, you know, the likes of Senator Lummis saying that the Biden administration has been selling Bitcoin. We haven't heard any update on, you know, the actual audit of the Bitcoin. That we don't know if the U.S. government actually holds allegedly 328,000 plus Bitcoin. Really, we don't know if they hold a bulk of that 200,000 that they originally had. But anyways, the younger DeGita was reportedly able to access private crypto addresses and millions of dollars in funds through his father's position at the company. Through the technical details behind how he obtained access remains unclear. There's a picture of him, and I don't know if you guys saw the memes, but there's a funny meme correlation here. But here's the official announcement. You know, thanks to the International Cooperation Team Serious Crime Unit of the French Gendarmerie National, I don't think I said that right, in Saint Martin, and the Group de Intervention de la Gendarmerie Nationale of Guadeloupe for the outstanding coordination. So FBI will continue working 24/7 with our international partners to track down, apprehend, and bring to justice those who attempt to defraud American taxpayers, no matter where they try to hide. And according to Bitcoin Mag, hey, look, New York Post, you know, tagging our boys here, quoting our boys. The case comes amid increased scrutiny of the crypto holdings of the U.S. Marshal Service, which is estimated to be in the vicinity of 200,000 Bitcoin. That is kind of the big question here. That's why this story has been brought up from a lot of Bitcoiners. It's the idea, look, we know what the U.S. government has said. They said we're going to, you know, find a lot of budget neutral ways to acquire Bitcoin. And the main point, which I pointed out at the time, was they didn't really have any, you know, there was the talk of Senator Lummis of revaluating gold. But the main point that they said was budget neutral, was confiscation of people's assets or their Bitcoin and crypto. And then shortly after, we're seeing the U.S. Marshals just completely fumble this idea of actually holding on to the Bitcoin. Yeah. There was a little speculations and rumors around whether the U.S. Marshals actually had the 200,000 Bitcoin. There was Freedom of Information Act, and they responded with like, you know, we don't have it. The address apparently went to Coinbase, but we actually, you know, got a report or a press release from them saying, no, we actually do have it. Again, on-chain metrics are like, it looks like you guys sold the 200,000 Bitcoin. What the hell is going on here? Mm-hmm. So look, I started the show with the idea of, you know, me and Paul laid out the logical basis for, will the U.S. eventually get to the strategic Bitcoin reserve? Of course, they're stacking gold. Eventually, that might, you know, flow into Bitcoin in some kind of budget neutral ways. And then we also have the recent story that we just covered where it's like they can't even custody the Bitcoin that they're confiscating. So look, as I've said on this show multiple times, I think you guys know my view on this. The only thing that the government really excels at is incompetence. And I think we're just seeing more and more stories of this. So look, I am not that hopeful. You guys know me. I've been kind of burnt out with the whole Bitcoin political narrative. It doesn't seem like there's a lot of good news coming out from the Bitcoin federal level, and we'll see what actually happens. But look, hey, at least the FBI got him, I guess. I guess Cash Patel is doing one thing that's sort of okay. I don't know. I mean,
that's
I don't know.
Exactly what came to my mind is like, there's all sorts of things that people could be arrested for these days. There were some documents that were released about that. And those don't seem to be happening. But if you mess with mess with some money, then they can catch you right away. Chainalysis seems to work great for everybody in the industry except the United States government.
Yeah.
So it's I don't know, man. It's like every country that you've ever seen throughout history going through these kind of financial problems. They just flow into chaos, and it's like one putting out a fire over here and then starting a fire over there, and it goes back and forth until you just you're so busy looking at every fire that you just all you're left with is what you can do for yourself. So
truly it really, look, I don't know if I've said this on the show. I think we've said it a couple of times, but you read stories like this and the initial story. So I guess they lost 46 million in crypto that they had confiscated in the first place. I guess now they just reconfiscated what was stolen from them. So, I guess good, but it really does feel like the U.S. is Banana Republic vibes. Yep. It really, this is what we are, guys.
100%. And is that on purpose? That could be part of the narrative, because if you're looking at all the chaos, you're not paying attention to what's really going on.
True. And there's a lot of chaos going on right now, guys. A lot of chaos. Maybe by design, who knows? Anyways, guys, of course, I got Paul Tarantino, CEO of Bytefederal, with us today. And he, CEO of a Bitcoin ATM company. And we're gonna be talking about kind of a new, is it fair to say a new attack?
I think so.
Okay. A new attack on Bitcoin, on Bitcoiners. That's what we're going to cover towards right now after this commercial. So we'll be right back after this last break.
I want to give a shout out to our partner, HIVE Digital Technologies. Fueled by clean energy, HIVE has quadrupled its global Bitcoin mining footprint and channels that same scale into high-performance compute, where their AI cloud is now ranked #1 in the world for network performance. At HIVE, you've got dual engines, Bitcoin and AI humming, roaring, accelerating in unison. They're lean and mean, they're green and clean, and they're rewriting the playbook on sustainable digital infrastructure. You can catch the latest buzz at HIVE Digital Tech or at hivedigitaltech.com.
All right, guys. So, Paul,
yeah,
you guys posted this on Bytefederal.
Yep.
Bitcoin ATMs have been the subject of a lot of scrutiny lately, but should they be, with the tag Bitcoin ATMs, where fraud begins? So for our audience that maybe isn't too familiar with what this is about, can you give them some context, and then we can break down kind of what the video was saying?
Sure. If you haven't been paying attention or haven't seen it, the AARP and media sources that have been fed information are on an all-out attack on the Bitcoin ATM industry, calling our industry the scammers, and making people believe that we are the problem. And so we feel very unfairly attacked, because as I will show you or talk to you about here, we are doing far more than anybody in this chain of fraud to protect customers from being scammed. And what people need to realize is that this entire scam chain starts with a phone call, an email, or a text. And
can you break down for the people how the scam happens? Because,
Sure.
I think maybe our audience is a little more sophisticated, but at least if they know, maybe they can protect their friends or their parents or what have you.
the typical pig butchering scam is something like, you get a phone call from a local phone number or the IRS or Social Security Administration. You get or Microsoft, you name it, right? It's a trusted person.
Wait, is this what all the scam text messages I'm getting recently? Okay,
yeah,
I just ignore them. I ignore them.
Well, and the seniors are particularly vulnerable because they didn't grow up with this kind of technology, right? So they get the phone call. They're told that they have to do X, Y, Z as fast as possible, or something bad is going to happen.
Okay.
And so once they've got that victim on the hook, the next step is to send them to the bank.
Okay.
And they're sending them to the bank to withdraw cash. All right. So that's the second line of defense. The first, which we haven't even talked about yet, which is the most vulnerable and the worst protective infrastructure, is the telecom or the voice over IP, where these scammers are getting access to the phone system, text messages, etc., and where they're able to spoof this trusted person that you're talking to, right? But so once that scam has been implemented there, then they go to the bank and they've directed that victim to withdraw X amount of cash to pay the bill, and then they send them to the Bitcoin ATM. So that's the chain of the fraud. But if you go back to the FCC, let me get some of these numbers because they're mind-blowing.
Okay.
So last year alone, 52.5 billion robocalls in the United States.
And robocalls is like the
automated phone calls. So that's 12.5 billion a month.
That's crazy.
And there was a 43% surge in elder fraud losses in 2025.
Wow.
Associated with that. And the average loss to a phone scam, which is the highest dollar amount, not the email scams are less and the text scams are less, but the average loss of a phone scam victim is $2,210.
Wow.
So the telecom is where the big problem is. So what prior to 2021, you paid $100, you gave them some information, and you got access to a phone number.
Okay.
And you could start blasting out these scams. In 2021, they mandated what was called the stir and shaken rule, which was basically the FCC telling the telecom providers that they needed to do due diligence, KYC essentially, on the people that were requesting the phone number.
Okay.
They have failed horribly at that. The stir, shake, and protocol makes them rank these people based on how much they know about them. Well, 48% of the fraudulent robocalls had the highest KYC rating from the FCC. So, and the classic example of this, and people can research it, go on any one of your favorite AIs and ask about the Mario Cop scandal. Okay. So this is a telecom that gave a company whose name was Mario Cop a phone number. The address of the company was a Hilton hotel in Canada.
Oh, God.
And the content of the call was an AI-generated Joe Biden voice telling New Hampshire residents that they didn't need to vote in the primaries.
That's crazy.
So they're not worried at all about what the content of the call is. They're obviously not doing any real due diligence on the company that's requesting the phone number. And these scams are just going out the door over and over. Well, that's not enough, right? So the FCC says, well, we got to start fining these companies that are doing all this bad work. $208 million in fines since 2014. They've only collected $6,700.
Oh, man.
So these companies, they're finding these companies that are literally folding their doors because they live at the Hilton Hotel and they're moving across the street to Motel 6 and they're starting the scam again. So it's literally the weakest enforcement and the weakest. It's like you've just left your front door wide open so the criminals can walk in. Right.
Damn.
So we are literally giving the fraudsters easy access to all of our citizens in the United States. Okay. So now once they've got through that network and they've able to target a victim, that victim is feeling pressure that they need to pay this bill immediately. This is happening on a Friday afternoon, and they send them to the bank, and the bank has got to know their customer, right? So they're doing all the KYC on the individual. They're going to ask the individual, why are you withdrawing cash? And if they're at all suspicious, they don't really block and tell you, you cannot take this cash. What they do is they file a SARS report, a suspicious activity report, and that gets sent to the file. So the bank has done their due diligence. This didn't seem right.
It's like Pontius Pilate. Like, right. I wash my hands of this.
I filed the SAR. Now take your money and do whatever you want to do with it. Then they get to the last line of defense, which is the Bitcoin ATM, because that scammer has directed them there. We also do KYC, AML on every person that touches our ATM. So you cannot do a transaction without us knowing who you are. We have signs over all of our ATMs and in pop-up windows that say, stop, are you being scammed? Here's scams that we're aware of. Does any of this sound familiar? Are you doing this purchase for your own self, for yourself? Is this for an investment? What is the purpose of your transaction? Are you buying this to send it to anybody else? If you're answering incorrectly,
it's like a push through, like yes or no.
We're blocking the transaction. Okay. You cannot put money on our machine.
Okay.
All these questions are happening ahead of time. On top of that, if you're 60 years or older, you get a live call from customer support that once again goes through all the scams, asks you, what's the purpose of the purchase? Are you buying this to send to somebody? And we have historical records going back to when we started to do those live calls in 2024. We have prevented 84% of 60-year-old and over from doing a transaction because they discovered it was fraud. And so we are filing a suspicious activity report, but we're going the extra mile. We're not letting them do the transaction. We're the only and last line of defense. So everybody else in this system is checking boxes and saying, we've done what we're supposed to do. The Bitcoin ATM companies are the only ones in the system that are saying, sorry, you can't do this transaction. And we are the major attack point.
Yeah. Let's talk about that. Like what is the pressure that you're seeing right now? What do you think are the reasons that the Bitcoin ATM industry is being blamed for this? Like what, maybe for everyone out there that hasn't been following along, because it's obviously like not a sexy news story.
Right.
Like what is the current attacks happening on the Bitcoin ATM industry?
Right. So it's happening at a state by state level. And what is happening is the regulators are putting out proposals, new legislation, rule changes that would make it illegal to operate a Bitcoin kiosk company in their state, and or make the cost of doing business so high that you pull out.
Yeah.
So I'll give you some example. We found out this morning in Oklahoma that they want to put in a mandatory refund up to 120 days out after the transaction. If the customer discovers it was fraudulent, they get a full refund. We don't get our Bitcoin back.
So it'd be a dollar refund.
Right. So you bought $10,000 worth of Bitcoin. We sent you the Bitcoin. 120 days later, I was scammed.
You got to pay the 10K.
We don't get the Bitcoin back, and we got to give them the 10K. So what?
Insane.
So now, what that means for our industry is you better be able to custody customers' funds.
Yeah.
So what that would mean in order to do business in that state is, okay, Opti, you gave us 10 grand. We got 10 grand of Bitcoin here for you that we will custody for you until which time you're past this hurdle rate, right? So they are forcing us into custody and acting like a bank, which
brings on another level of problems.
Another level of problems, right? Where you're got to be a qualified custodian. You have to have either a bank license or enough MTLs to cover every state so that you can custody coins for a period of time. So that becomes a difficulty. The other attack factor is limiting the size of transactions. So if you can imagine, right, we have to build our physical machines. We have to put them in a location. We have to pay rent in that location. We have to pay Garda, Brinks, Loomis to go pick up the cash. We have to have a full bank compliance suite behind looking at every transaction to make sure everything's good. So it's a high cost operation, right? And now they want us to do things like limit the amount of dollars per day, per new customer, per old customer, per month, to the point that we will not be able to even break even on some of these machines.
Yeah, I can only imagine.
It'll limit the daily volume so much that we wouldn't be able to break even. So, you know, it's all these attacks from all the different states, and because it's a 50-state front and every state is different, it's really hard to keep up on it. And I'll just add, you know, like the Bitcoin, we are all FinCEN registered. We're all FinCEN registered in money service businesses. We have to comply with all the Bank Secrecy Act laws. And then we also have to have any state license that's required. And then we have the stop you're being frauded scam. We have to do analysis of the wallet address. We're looking for sanctioned wallets, sanctioned individuals, etc. We are going above and beyond what the banking industry ever had to do. And we are getting pointed at is that we are the scammers.
Yeah.
And it's simply not the case. We're doing everything we can to protect our users and our customers from being scammed. And we seem to be the only person in the system that's actually preventing scams, as opposed to everybody else who's checking boxes or just letting them through the front door.
Wow, I honestly was not aware it was that bad. And even further, like it seems like the protections that the state is trying to impose on you are just going to bring in more scams. Whereas like it's not going to be the 60-year-old, your grandma being scammed. It's going to be you guys getting scammed with like cashback, you know, or chargebacks.
Well, here's some of the logic, right? Like a SAR, like if you're going to file a suspicious activity report on somebody, it's got to be $2,000.
Okay.
Well, but a lot of these states are saying, well, we're going to limit your daily transaction to $1,000. So they're literally tiering the transactions or mandating us to tier the transactions so that we never file a SAR.
Oh, wow.
Which is what they want the banking industry filing SARs. Why do they not, like, why do they want to structure the transactions in a way where we don't ever file a SAR?
Interesting.
They're using we got to protect the consumer to target and attack our industry. And the bottom line is just, you guys can go look this up. TDM, which is a cohort or a competitor to Chainalysis, did a lot of research on the Bitcoin ATM industry. 98.8% of the Bitcoin ATM transactions in the United States were deemed legitimate. Only 1.2% were fraud. Meanwhile, last year in the banking system alone, wire fraud was over $208 billion.
Insane.
Yeah.
And sounds, I mean,
so
you can make a good case that the majority of fiat currency usage or wires is for literal fraud.
And this comes back to what we talked to in the beginning of the show, which is we are big supporters of self-custody. You cannot do a transaction with us unless you have your own wallet.
Yeah.
So when you start to look at what's happening throughout the Bitcoin ecosystem, regardless of where the attack's coming from, it all looks to be ways to try and dismantle as many people from holding their own keys.
Okay. Now that's the other can of worms here. Yeah. And I think it does kind of go back into the beginning of the show is, we've heard, and actually before I do that, I do want to talk about like ways that people can protect themselves, but we'll piggyback off this conversation. And, in the US particularly, there, at least from the Trump administration, from all of the narratives we're hearing, there is this idea of the US is going to be the Bitcoin, capital of the world. Mm-hmm. And then we are seeing, whether it's rogue agencies, kind of like what the DOJ did with the Samurai Wallet devs, or other, lesser agencies, we are kind of seeing a split between what the official Trump administration wants to do with Bitcoin and all these other agencies that are kind of hell-bent on still attacking our industry. Mm-hmm. And it sounds like this is a perfect example of that happening, where like, yeah, we have this narrative of we're going to be the Bitcoin capital of the world, and then the smaller agencies are under the federal government, they're still actively attacking us. And since it's not like a sexy story, there's a lot of not so sexy stories that people won't want to click on a video for, and it's like there's multiple attacks happening right now on the industry. Yep. And like you said, and I think they're both connected, I said the Wall Street attack is trying to, take your Bitcoin in various, incentives. And now we're seeing the state attacking self-custody using the banking regulations that are in place right now. So it's never been more important to take custody of your Bitcoin and protect yourself.
Exactly. And, we're coming from the perspective of we want to stop fraud. And so we have put in, and it's not everybody in the industry, but we and others have put in as many safeguards as possible for our users to not be taken advantage of. That being said, if you're a regulator or you're law enforcement or you're the AARP, which is beating this drum to no end, you really need to step back and do some research as to how this fraud starts and where it comes from. Why is the FCC issuing licenses to giving people the highest rating that are perpetuating 48% of the fraud? If these calls are coming through at a rate that is this bad, and they're driving people to bank fraud, they're driving people to our ATMs, but you're doing nothing of value to prevent that from happening, right? And even when they do give them the highest rating, again, that's 48% of the fraud calls have the highest rating attached to them. But even if they wanted to, the telecom providers or the fraudsters will route the calls through old copper networks where they can't legitimately even utilize the new digital ID stamps. So you've got a digital ID stamp that says this is a valid user of the phone system. If they route that call through a copper line,
so it won't say like unknown. It won't do that or spam call or whatever it is.
It's absolutely insane. I'll give you. See if I can find the numbers here real quick. The stir shaken protocol is what it's called. You guys can look it up. Yeah. So 48% of the illegal robocalls carry the highest A-level trust signature of the stir shaken protocol.
That's crazy.
And 2.9. I'm sorry, I said 208 billion. That was wrong. It's 2.9 billion of bank fraud wire losses. And it goes on and on. The FCC fines were 208 million since 2015. $670 actually collected.
Wait, 670.
Yep.
That's even worse.
There's 1,200 plus non-compliant voice over IP providers.
So these voice scams, it's like a big business. It's like a big part of.
I mean, how many scam calls do you get a day?
Well, that's what I was going to say. So, to wrap up the show for people, I mean, I'm sure most of these people in the chat with us, have some sense of like digital hygiene, how to protect themselves. Right. But I have noticed in the, I don't know, like the last month or so, my phone is getting blown up. Like I'm getting scam texts. I'm getting spam voice calls. I'm like, someone must have bought my phone number from something. I don't know where they got it from, but I'm getting blown up right now. Like every day I'm getting like 1 or 2 a day. And I mean, personally, I just like don't respond to anyone that I don't know. Like I don't pick up random calls. I just ignore them usually unless I get a voicemail and I'm like, okay, I actually was in contact with them and I should get back to them. But for people out there, like what is your advice for most people? Like how do they protect themselves from this?
So that's
just do what I do. Ignore the calls, ignore the texts, ignore the emails.
First of all, I do that. Like I don't take a call that if it's not got a name on it that's from my contact list.
Yeah.
That's number one. Number two, same thing goes for emails and texts.
Yeah.
Number three, at least for me, I have 2FA, real 2FA, not
SMS
2FA, on every account that I have financial assets on. That's a big one. The other thing is, I think what we're going to see, and I know we're already reading about it. AI has just recently been able to produce deep fakes that can break your physical identification metrics.
Yeah, I've been seeing the e-girls with like the random guy behind them and like doing the dances, and it's like perfect overlay.
Yeah, so it
was research, guys. Okay,
it was research. So we're going to see the KYC AML process and the identification face tech, persona technology that identifies you, get put under a lot of stress in the near future. So I would be very, very cautious of keeping high balances in your bank. Again, another reason to have Bitcoin is self-custody, in cold storage, multi-sig if you prefer to have a helping hand with Unchained or Casa, somebody like that. I think those are super important because we are in an era with this war and with AI that we are going to see all sorts of attacks on the banking system and our financial system. So the only way you're going to protect, the other thing, Ifani, if you're not familiar with Ifani.
Yeah, I've never heard of that.
Or there's another one whose name I can't remember. You can set up your phone in a way where you can't be SIM swapped.
Oh, wow.
And
what is it? Ifani? How do you spell that?
EFANI.
Okay.
Highly recommend it. They make it nearly impossible for someone to SIM swap you. And
wow.
I have friends of friends who got SIM swapped in the middle of the night where they're sleeping. They had 5 checking accounts, 2 business accounts, husband, wife, and kids gone, and they were cleared through Zelle.
Damn.
It was all cleared through Zelle because they had Zelle connected to all their accounts.
Damn, that's brutal.
It was like over $150,000 overnight while they were asleep, and they had no idea that they were SIM swapped. So it's a real threat. Everybody needs to take security very, very seriously. And I think it's going to get to the point where you and your family members are going to have to have words that you say to each other to verify we're real.
Yeah, 100%, without a doubt. It's the scam industry. I know they call us scammers. Bitcoin is money launderers, criminals, whatever they call us. But it really is eye-opening just how big, like I don't even know what you call it, like a black market, like the scam industry. Like it sounds weird to say, but like it's a big business. Yeah. It's an industry scamming. And
their business just got easier, right? They can point AI at the dark web and go collect IDs, and then they can point it at social media and get your identity and your face and what you look like, and then they can get on Simply Bitcoin and steal your voice.
Damn, right? I'm cooked.
Yeah,
guys, if I call you, it wasn't me because I don't call anyone. Okay, I'm not texting you. I'm not in your DMs asking you hi. 100%. How's your trades going? It wasn't me. Exactly. Man, dude, it honestly is terrifying. When you get that
call from Opti about that 1 minute trade.
Yeah, it wasn't me. Trust me, it wasn't me. Wow. Okay, Paul, that low-key kind of terrifying, but I guess
the only other thing I'll add, Bytefederal is going to be putting up a website that's going to be providing everybody with all this data. This is the first time we've talked about it publicly, but we're going to have a website up soon. People will be able to go visit that and really dig in and learn about these scams and what we need to say to our legislators and regulators. We need to point them in the right direction. We need to point them at the open door that's unlocked, which is the FCC, and we need to sort that problem out. That would stop so much of the scam from ever being implemented.
All right. Well, more power to you guys. Before we do go wrap up today's show, Paul, let's do a Bytefederal plug for the ATMs, not for you guys to scam, but if you want to find an ATM, how can they go about finding an ATM, Paul? Yeah. I'll pull up the website.
Yeah, just go to Google and type in Bytefederal Bitcoin ATM near me. Google search will point you in the right direction, or you can go to our website that's pictured there and you can put in your zip code and we'll point you to one of our ATMs that are nearby you.
How many ATMs do you guys have worldwide, or at least in the US side?
Yeah, we've got about 1,400 in the US and about 100 in Australia.
Let's go. So I'm guessing maybe you guys might see one around you. I have been seeing the ATMs kind of pop up, right, especially down here in Miami. Yeah. I've seen them around a little more than I expected to see them. I was actually with my mother the other day and we were driving. It's like, Bitcoin accepted here. We're like, what the hell is this place? And they just have like a Bitcoin ATM. There's a smoke shop right down the street from me that has one. I don't think it's a Bytefederal one because it looked a little sketchy. I'm not gonna lie, but they are becoming a lot more popular. And at least maybe it's one of those things where like when you see them, then you see more of them.
Yeah, it could be. I mean, look at we have 19 million or so families that are or underbanked in the United States. they make up the vast majority of our customer base. They're coming in buying $500, $100, $200 of Bitcoin all the time, because they have no way to get their cash into a banking system. So if you need to move into the digital economy with your cash, the Bitcoin ATM is the primary use case. So we're really doing as much as we can to help a lot of the people get access to financial products and services that they wouldn't normally have access to.
Awesome, man. Awesome. Well, doing Satoshi's work over there at Bytefederal, Paul. So, I guess, yeah, I know you just announced it, but if you can, maybe it's if you can, is there an ETA when the people can watch for this website or this page so that they can, clean up their digital hygiene?
Yeah, we'll have it up and live, I guess, within the next week or two.
Okay, yeah. Now the Bytefederal guys,
keep pinging our website.
The Bytefederal guys,
we'll definitely send you.
Yeah, you just put all the interns on overtime to get this website out. All right, Paul. Well, thank you so much for coming on. Really appreciate it.
Thanks, brother.
Always good talking with you. And yeah, he was telling me about surfing in down here at South Florida. We'll see if I get in the water, Paul. We'll see if I get in the water, but yeah, one day soon. Actually, before wow, guys, getting caught up here with Paul. Before I keep the show and roll out, I do have to give a shout out to our boys over at Bitcoin Magazine. I missed the Bitcoin Las Vegas 2026 plug, guys. Bitcoiners are taking over Las Vegas again, April 27th through the 28th. It's going to be in the Venetian. Again, the world's largest Bitcoin conference. We were talking about like, hey, I kind of wanted to come back to Miami, maybe Nashville. But hey, last year, I think it's the last year in Vegas. So you don't want to miss it. If you weren't there last year, Vegas is Vegas. What happens in Vegas, we won't talk too much about what you do out there. Okay, guys? So make sure you get your tickets. If you use the promo code SIMPLY, you will get 10% off. Of course, if you're thinking about it, if you're on the fence, buy it now because the prices do get crazy. And look, I know you guys are in the chat like, I'm not going to that thing. And then the conference day happens and you wish you had a ticket. So buy it today. Use promo code SIMPLY. And we'll see you in Las Vegas. All right, guys. On that note, again, last show of the week. It will be a Simply Opti tomorrow. Yeah, actually, it's going to be Simply Opti. I was going to say Luke, but he's got some stuff. He can't come on the show. So it's going to be me tomorrow. You already know it's Friday. Maybe if you're lucky, we'll do a meme review. All right? Tag me in some memes. We'll do a meme review to wrap up the Friday show. As long as you tag me in some good memes. If I don't have good memes, you already know the memes have been kind of mid. All right? If you don't got good memes, I won't do a meme review and I'll have to rant, okay? Anyways, on that note, I'll see you tomorrow, guys. Have a good rest of your day. Get some sun, eat some good food, call your loved ones, all that good stuff. Stack some Bitcoin. This is the way. And make sure it is going into self-custody. Peace out. I'll see you guys tomorrow.
Today's episode was brought to you by BitcoinWell.com, a Bitcoin-only platform on a mission to enable financial independence.